here. What's happening, everybody? Everybody's having a fantastic whatever day you're watching this. Hold on, let me get this contraption figured out over here. All right, that seems to be kind of working. Hey, hope everybody's having a fantastic day. It is kind of a weird vibe right now in the whole Mopar world. You guys notice this with Ford basically running away with all the pub and all the just warm fuzzies with the new Mustang and potentially the new GT500 hitting the streets. Well, there are a lot of folks that are just giving Ford a tongue bath when it comes to, again, the S650 and the potential for the S650 GT500, which is fantastic. But you know, in the meantime, it's not like Dodge has quit making cars. I mean, gee, they're still making Challengers and Chargers. And, well, to be honest with you, it's kind of cool to still see them on showroom floors, I suppose. I mean, it's kind of weird, though, isn't it? I mean, I feel like I'm going to the zoo and looking at an animal that's soon to be extinct. I mean, there's a part of me that just says, well, I mean, progress progresses, and whatever comes next is probably pretty cool, right? Or at least you hope it's gonna be. But man, the more I look at it and the more I'm, you know, kind of fixated on some of this Dodge stuff, the more pathetic it really looks. I mean, all I know is, well, I'm saddened by it all. And the issue that I have is that there's no mention of what is yet to come. There's no mention of what can be. And with, I don't know, with Dodge not necessarily opting out of SEMA, which they're not, but not bringing anything new to the table for SEMA. You know what's funny? I came about that close to registering and going to SEMA this year. But with Dodge not doing anything, what would be the point? I mean, I'm not really all that interested in just about everything that's going to be shown so far as I know. I mean, Aturo's got the new drag radial coming out, so it would at least be worth it for me to show up and take a look at that. I've kind of been hoping that that would have been released already, but I don't know. Is there anything else on the horizon that you would get interested in enough to spend money on it? Man, I don't know. But I guess the more that I look into it and the more that I have resigned myself to this animal going extinct, I got to tell you guys, I cannot imagine any other auto manufacturer doing what Dodge did. Crap, except for Ford. See, that's the problem we keep running into, is that every time people start lavishing love all over Dodge, you got to remember that Ford did a lot of this stuff already. And Ford also did the four-cylinder turbo thing a long time ago as well. Well, actually, not almost. It was actually concurrent with the SVO Mustangs. But even before there was the SVO Mustang, there were still 2.3-liter turbocharged Mustangs running around. They just weren't called SVOs. So weird that Ford is kind of burning this candle, not necessarily at both ends. It's just burning a candle concurrently for performance car enthusiasts. And guys, I'm not trying to prop Ford up as much as you might think. Ford's just doing the right thing, but the weird thing about it is that Ford, in this case, is getting credit. I should think about this for a minute. Ford's getting credit for just doing the right thing. It's akin to, you know, when you hear somebody say that they're doing something that they ought to be doing anyway, like, I go to work every day. Really? It's kind of, you don't get credit for that, okay? As much energy and effort as it may take, you don't just get automatic credit for being that guy that shows up to work. Although, in some cases, I would probably take that. But you see what I'm saying? It's funny that Ford's getting all this lavish attention for, in essence, doing the right thing. allowing the free market to decide what vehicles that they're going to make, as opposed to being dictated to. So, coerced, or whatever you want to call it. But with all that being said, I'm stoked with everything that Dodge has given us. The Hellcats, the Scat Packs, all of the SRT variants that led up to those cars, the RT, which kept that boat afloat, and the 6 cylinders that kept everybody wanting at least an RT. I love all of that stuff. And I got to tell you guys, it's not outside the realm of possibility that Dodge comes out with something cool eventually. So hopefully that eventually gets here sooner than later. But with everything that's going on in the economy right now, which, you know, is not necessarily the best, but I mean, we've seen worse, but I call it a correction, if you will. With all of that going on, a lot of folks are thinking, well, will I even buy with bells on to collect those checks? Believe that. So anyway, a little bit of an open chat though tonight. Wanted to talk about a bunch of different things, give you guys a Stormy update, let you know what's going on with that contraption. Basically the state of the drag strip address is that we'll have a drag strip at least partially into next year, maybe even fully into next year. Fingers crossed for the latter on that. So far as I can tell anyway, we're looking good into 2023. Last night was the last night of Friday night Safe Street events. In other words, there's just not going to be any more Friday night drags. So if I want to cover a number or get out there and do testing or whatever, it's going to be with the Draggy, which I tell you what, of all the things that I have, the Draggy is probably the most engaging. It's the most fun, just because I can get out there and, you know, see if what I've done makes a difference in terms of making something make more power or going faster. So, but anyway, let me get to you guys real quickly, and then we will get back into me yammering on. What in the world did I just do? Hold on a minute. I don't know. There we go. I don't know if y'all can see that. My arm flex, I like it. And Twain saying, do you have a link to buy a Draggy? I don't. You just have to Google that one. All the testing you do might have sold me on one. I'll tell you what, man. I don't, but I'll tell you this. Draggies are a lot of fun. You know, when you're south or north of the border doing your speed runs, I can tell you this. They work great. They're incredibly accurate. And I'm hoping that y'all can see just the accuracy that thing was laying down. It was, what was it, like 0.04 of a second? It read 0.04 of a second slower than what the car actually ran. And the mile an hour was dead on. So that was pretty cool. But unfortunately, no, I don't have a link for that. But it's just check out Draggy and it'll take you right to a site that'll sell you one. Chuck saying, what's up, Chuck? Jason saying, I found you when I had a Charger, but I stayed around when I upgraded to a Mustang. That's for the excellent content. Thank you very much. Yeah, you know, it's been a while since I've worked on a Mustang. I've helped to turn wrenches on quite a few of the S550s, and they're neat cars. I love them. In fact, so you know those cars that I always talk about that, man, I wish I would have kept, or, you know, the cars that you just hated to see the shop. One of those was one of the, what year was it? The anniversary edition. It was one of those that I really liked a lot. Anyway, I always had a soft spot in my heart for Mustangs. Still have one, so. But thank you, Jason. I appreciate you, man. Ardell's checking in saying, hey, B, what's up, man? Roy is in. What's up? No Average RTA. What's up, man? Saying, hey, what's up? Hey, what's up, Jason? Babel, I'm from Neo Mopar. I seen you at Thompson Wednesday, I believe. Don't know. Oh, those guys are hanging out. Sorry, I misunderstood there for a second. Vay Rocker, what's up? Saying, hey, good evening. I went by my Mopar power broker today, and there was not one thing to show they were a power broker, nor did I see a direct connection sign anywhere. happy to talk about that little conundrum. So one of the problems that I have with this whole direct connection debacle is that they're not even showing the hardware. All right, like you go to a power broker dealer, and let's say I want to buy a red-eye drive shaft. Do they even have one? There's not any of them on for display. What if I want to buy the 3.0 supercharger? Do they have any of those in stock? Maybe not, might have to order those. But that's not a factory part. So what I'm doing is I'm kind of drawing your attention to distinguish between what is a factory part and what is a direct connection part. You see, I don't feel like I should have to have a direct connection power broker to buy a red-eye drive shaft, a twin snorkel hood, a performance wing. Well, you don't have to have one to get the performance wing. But you can kind of see where I'm going with this. These quote unquote or these so-called VIN-locked parts, it's ridiculous. So I guess where I'm going with this is, what does it even mean to be a power broker? I mean, in practical application, I really don't know. In fact, I'll take it a step further. What does it mean to be a power broker, and how does being a power broker affect a Dodge dealership? Because if I can just run down to my local and pick up the drive shaft and pick up the rest of the parts that matter to me, being a power broker doesn't mean anything. But what sucks is that Dodge was VIN locking parts. In fact, at one point, they were even VIN locking the rear seat delete. I was able to get one for Shalandra because Shalandra had an SRT badge on her. If you can believe that. Isn't that weird? So it was a bit of a loophole when it very first came out to where I could actually get one. I think I got the first or second commercially available lights out or whatever package it was that they were selling it under. But here's the funny thing. So I'm in on that part that early. That would have been a direct connection part by today's standards. And the funny thing about it is that when you look at the parts that they don't have, they being the power brokers, as far as having the factory parts or some of the other, what you would consider to be almost necessities to at least have on the wall, the zero camber knuckles, any of the suspension bits, the Demon Springs for sure, maybe some calibration changes that don't affect the power necessarily, or maybe body control module upgrades that allow for different Uconnect settings or more customizable features. None of that steps into the emissions realm. You don't have to get an EO to have springs put on your car or a different Gasmet or Gizmo on your screen. So I'm confused because right now Dodge is so wrapped up in its release of an EV or release of whatever the hell else it was they were trying to drop on us. I would have much rather had, this is direct connection, rock and roll, hair and everything and all that, with, you know, chicks with the sparks shooting out of their tits and everything else, and have that have been day one. Day two, the Hornet, whatever. Day three, it could have definitely not have been whatever that was. But give some love to direct connection, but more importantly, make it a destination. Because right now, nobody has any reason to go. There's no parts on the shelf to see. There's nobody in there to talk about. And every time I've talked to anybody that works at the parts counter that is a direct connection dealer, it hasn't gone so well. I mean, it's not an impolite conversation, but it's just that you can smell the frustration in the air. And it's dumpster diaper fire smell in those places in terms of morale. It's to the point where you can tell that they have had to answer the same stupid question for morons like me that goes kind of like this. Where are the parts? What's the availability? What's the pricing? What's in the tune? Can I get the pulley without the tune? Does it come with the warranty? How long's the warranty? Da 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 da. To which they have to answer this question over and over again, or at least they did, right up into the point where people got the hint. Listen, if you are not providing a service, if you are constantly having what you might be able to do, like having a hype man behind you, but is promoting you as something that you're not, as you have a skill set that you simply don't have, that's a bad thing. In other words, it makes it look like you can't do the rest of what is really your job, that you may be really good at. Just sucks that they're kind of getting the shit into the stick on this deal. And I feel really bad for the folks that are working hard, that are trying to get this thing off the ground. The problem is that you get, again, the idea, could be wrong, but you get the idea that they're so manpower limited and so experience devoid that they just don't know how to get the ball rolling. It's one thing to just get something moving, get something in progress, but in my experience, I got some experience on the corporate world or in the corporate arena. Man, a lot of times just getting anything agreed to, the simplest yes, can take a committee 6 months to turn. It's not pretty, and it doesn't make you look fleet of foot. And the problem is it makes you look terrible to your end customers and your end users, especially when they have no say in any of this. So, guys, definitely feel your pain on this one. Sovereign Zan saying, hey, B. BB saying Dodge has no excuses to not have a V8. If Chevrolet can build a brand new 2023 V8 and Ford can keep the Coyote alive for another generation of Mustangs, then there's no excuse, and I agree with that. I definitely agree with that. You know, it's funny, though. The Hemi, it's getting harder and harder to pass emissions. So, but that being said, look at the issues that Chevrolet is going through with the 5.3 and the 6.2. 5.3 is anemic at best, and the 6.2, well, they're having plenty of problems with that thing. So, I don't know, guys. I agree with you, though. How hard could it be? And why would you want to move away from this? Like, if any brand was going to stick around with the V8 with 2 middle fingers in the air to anybody telling them they can't do what they want to do, it should have been Dodge. I mean, they have a reputation to uphold, right? I mean, this is Dodge, isn't it? Remember, you know what, guys? Let me ask y'all something. Do y'all remember a video? I doubt, there might be 3 of you that might remember this video. About 5 years ago, I did a video, and it was explaining Chevrolet, Dodge, and Ford as chicks you'd meet at the bar. But in this case, it was the Camaro, the Mustang, and the Challenger as chicks that you'd meet at the bar. And what's funny is that if you do remember that, you would think that that big ass curvy girl with the utterly impressive rack that walks around with 2 mugs of beer in her hand, being the Challenger, would have been the one that stuck around until the place shut down. I mean, when the hot librarian Ford is the one that sticks around until the place turns the lights off, and that tramp little sister wannabe Camaro checks out first. I mean, we can see really who's got the chops now, can't we? I mean, damn. Little librarian's got a past. And every once in a while when she flexes it, jaws drop. Let's not forget that it was Ford that threw out the 93 Lightning. Yeah, Chevrolet had the 454 SS and the 350 SS, but Ford had the Lightning, the Gen 1. After that, though, there was a lull and really not much was happening. Not until 1999 when it was Ford that released the 99 Lightning F-150, which is actually the vehicle that started the whole horsepower wars that you're living with right now. We can go through the lineage, but the fact of the matter is when everybody else bowed out, Ford hit the after party with the 2007 GT500, not even to mention the F-150 Lightnings that ran through 2004 and the Terminator Cobras from 03 to 04. But again, we had that hot, nasty little vixen that we just didn't know we were dealing with coming up with some heavy artillery in that GT500 when they didn't have to. Unrealistic styling with the retro look. Well before there was a Challenger, there was a retro Mustang. Still no Camaro to talk about. So is it any wonder that we get to this stage in history? Did you really think that Dodge was going to carry on this torch? I mean, once things got hot, Dodge jumped clean out of the hot tub. Chevrolet is the first to bail, but saying they're going to come back bigger and better with a four-door EV? Whoa, really? Seriously? Leave the latex gloves at home, Chevrolet. That is an absolute train wreck getting ready to happen. Talk about not knowing what you're doing. But the fact of the matter is Ford shows up to the party, shows up to the after party, and is the one swinging her bra over her head and looking at everybody bowing down to her. That's Ford, guys. Oh, shoot. And I almost forgot about Ford going racing. That's right, guys. GT3 and GT4 class with that Dark Horse R. It's going to be sick. And a lot of folks are going to be ditching Dodge just as fast as they jumped on that bandwagon so many years ago. Dodge has been a great run, guys, and I don't plan on getting rid of my Hellcat just to get a Mustang. And I love me some Stormy, if y'all haven't figured that out already. Although there are some weird transmission tuning things that I will have to learn with that truck. But she's got it where she counts. The fact is, though, is that it's just a shame that we don't have anything to brag about. If you're into muscle cars or pony cars, not just because you're a Ford fan, you're saddened to see Chevrolet ditch, but you're mortified to see Dodge go. No doubt about that. Doesn't matter which hook you hang your coat on. Gary, thank you very much, man. Saying, stopping in late, work is work, catch the rest later. Thank you, Gary, I appreciate that, brother. Thank you so much. Chuck's got the, just walking through here. Chuck's trying to say, balls deep in a wet hot nurse is what the Dark Horse will become when everyone else is lame. Hey, listen, I got to tell you something. You know, it's funny. It's really fun. Oh, I'm just kind of scrolling through. Is Ford owned by anyone? Yes, they're shareholders. David Barlow is saying, hit that like button. Let me scroll back up here, but thank you very much, man. I appreciate it. Sorry, saying Dodge gave people what they wanted. Well, at a time they did, yes. And Chuck saying Ford's smarter than all the manufacturers right now. And Sovereign saying, I think if Dodge wasn't owned by Stellantis, it would be different. That is 100% true. So the thing is, guys, is that if you've got a Dodge and you love your Dodge, keep it. There's nothing that will ever separate the LX platform from every other platform more than the fact that it is an actual muscle car. It's big. It's based on a large Mercedes-Benz platform. So think of it like that. I mean, you're more or less driving a W211 Mercedes-Benz with W212 suspension bits. That's not a joke. As a matter of fact, I don't know if you were to field strip I had a '09 E63 AMG. Sorry, I got my shoe doing something stupid. I had a '09 E63 AMG. If you were to field dress that car, it would not look any different than a 2015 or 2016 Charger. It would be identical. In fact, pedal placement, switch placement, and all that is really close too. But the funny thing is, you wouldn't be able to tell the difference once you close that door. These cars are really, really good, and they do what they are designed to do extremely well. Now, if you want something lightweight, came to the wrong party. But if you want something big, if you're a bigger guy in general, man, Mopar is the way to go. I mean, there's just no two ways around it. It fits you, and that's kind of the main idea with those cars. They just fit really, really well. Jay saying Dodge forced innovation starting with the Challenger. I don't think we would have the Coyote or some of the factory supercharged LS like we do if the innovation wasn't pressured. Well, you got to remember that you had all the Romeo-based engines from Ford. So you had all of the dual overhead cam stuff from Ford from 1996. Actually, 1994 or 5, starting in Lincoln with a 4.6 liter, bled into Mustang in 96. Now, keep in mind, the Coyote is not a Romeo-based block, but it's still along the same lines, which came out in 2011, with the Challenger hitting the mark with the 6.1 in 2008. A lot of changes were taking place during that period of time, and that was the kind of the golden age of the 400 horsepower naturally aspirated stuff. That's when you started to see that. So you had, leading up to this, the only thing that was over 400 horsepower from Ford would have been a GT500. And that in '07 is what was really driving that muscle car. How do I say this? The muscle car resurgence started when that 2007, 2008, 2009 generation of GT500 hit the market. 500 horsepower, 500 foot-pounds of torque. And it was that 500 foot-pounds of torque number, regardless of how you got there, that was a big spark. Because now you had true big block torque in a car. Now, yeah, the 390 torque, which was underrated, that the Terminator was putting down, that was there too. Don't get me wrong, but there's a big difference when you get to 500, and it was a bigger car too. I mean, by comparison, you could fit an S197 into that freaking, the newest, I can't remember the damn letters and numbers on it. Anyway, you know what I'm talking about. They were just significantly larger, but they had the power, and that was a muscle car. And it was not a good handling thing by anybody's standard. Even you compare that to a Challenger, it doesn't even handle near as well. But it didn't matter. Solid rear axle, big engine, manual transmission. What's not to love? What doesn't make that car a supercharged supercar? What didn't make that thing a muscle car? And as it evolved, it got faster and everything else. But the thing is it brought into question, I'm talking about the GT500 now. It's an interesting thing because it brought into question how much power can they make? How much power can they make and still pass emissions? A lot of folks were saying, man, I don't know, 500, 550 sounds like the most. I mean, there was a lot of guys that didn't even think 550 was possible. Well, you saw where all of that went. The Hellcat, the Super Snake, those were some cars that were making a lot more than 550, that's for sure. So and have it be something that is mass produced. So anyway, a lot of things took place then, and there was a lot of innovation coming from everywhere. And the weird thing is that it always seemed like you had Chevrolet kind of playing catch up. Dodge was making image-based cars once 2008 hit. Ford was still making big power cars with the GT500, albeit them at a significantly higher dollar value. But still, it didn't matter. Two retro cars going at it, and Chevrolet didn't really make it to the party until 2010. So with the Camaro. And that's the weird thing about it, is that, whenever the ZL1, this is how forgettable the ZL1 is. And I hate to say it like this, but this is how forgettable the ZL1 is. By the time the ZL1 hit the streets, there was so much buzz over the Challenger, and there was so much performance being extracted out of GT500s, Terminator Cobras, and Lightnings too, for that matter, but mainly that GT500 at the time, that it was just, nobody really gave it a whole lot of thought. It was all the 5th gen Camaro or nothing else. And yeah, there was that little thing with the Z28 that still gets underneath my skin. I can tell you it was a Piggly Wiggly that I was standing in when I saw the Motor Trend magazine that had Z28, and I was like, all right, that's what I'm getting. That's what I'm saved up my money. That's the car I'm buying. Only to have that thing show up at $72,000, which put it in a range which was, unobtainable for me, not by any standard of the, just couldn't even think of it. Being able to afford something like that. I want to make sure I'm not missing somebody. I got a super chat, but then something disappeared. Whoever put that up, thank you. I appreciate it, but there's nothing to go along with it. I don't know if it's a super thanks or a super chat, but thank you very much. That's the thing, guys. If y'all hit me with super thanks, you've got to message me. Hit me up on a message on the video if you do hit me with a super thanks, because I don't see those. It's the weirdest thing. It's a YouTube glitch, and if you sent me one and I didn't say thank you for that, I don't ever, they don't populate the way that super chats do. So even if I go looking for them, sometimes I can't find them. So actually, I can't ever find them. But thank you very much, whoever did that. I appreciate it. Kind of blasted right past here. Hang on, sorry guys. Roy's hanging out with Mike. Chuck saying the Dark Horse is sick, but it breaks my Mopar heart. Yeah, and that, okay, so by the way, guys, I want to share like my experience with you real quickly. Friday night. So Friday night, took Stormy to the drag strip. It was the last Friday night safe street night at Houston Raceway Park. Didn't want to take Revlon. Reason why I didn't want to take Revlon is because DA wasn't all that great. I really don't need the practice, and I've got to save these tires for January. So, or for a track rental or something like that. So I've got to save tires, and well, I had a reason to actually take the truck to a safe street night because I wanted to get data on the truck in a safe and legal way. I know. But anyway, you get the idea. So I get the truck down there and wanted to kind of just have a chill night. It was funny though, because I don't know, this makes no sense to me, but I had a couple of people coming up to me asking me about Stormy. Apparently Stormy, I don't know what the deal is, but she's developed a little bit of a reputation. I mean, if y'all saw the video, y'all saw the live, that if somebody spent a lot of money on a 6-cylinder Camaro to run 14 O's, and I mean, put it on me on the tree, but it's one of those things where I was trying to roll into the throttle and I could not afford to waste another pass on that truck. So I wanted to make sure it was going to hook. Stormy goes out and runs a 14-18 on that hit. And on the previous hit, it was a 1430 something with me getting completely out of the throttle all the way back. I mean, literally off the gas and then roll back into it to try to get it to run. It went a 1430 on that hit. It was a high 1430, but it still covered a 3.0. And I think somewhere else in the mix, it might have run a 20 or something like that. Anyway, but with wheel spin on the launch, I think I made 4 hits in total. And the problem is I think I really only hooked on one, maybe 2 of those passes. I think really only one, honestly, with those Goodyear Wranglers. They're just not a drag racing tire, and they do tend to hook better on the street. So with all of that being said, I don't know what the deal is, but so far, Stormy's body count, by luck or by whatever, is actually somewhat impressive. I mean, at the drag strip, she's taken out a bone stock 03 Lightning, and that's with a really goofy first to second gear shift issue that I fixed for the most part ish. Anyway, it took that truck out. She's beaten a couple of small block Malibu G-body type cars. Haven't raced a S197 yet, but I don't see that being much of a problem for that truck. What else has that truck? Oh, and a few other trucks. So here's the weird thing. I don't really understand how it worked out like this, but I ended up taking out a couple of Chevy, just the regular Chevy trucks, the Silverado type trucks. And now all of a sudden, Stormy's got a little bit of a target on her back. I don't know if it's a traction issue or something like that, but she's rolled up on some fairly healthy sounding, 4.8 or 5.3 trucks and has kind of done pretty good. So anyway, had a lot of fun, but one of the things I wanted to talk to you guys about real quick. Hang on just a second here. And I got another one that came up. I got 2 of you guys that have sent in, and I really do apologize for this, folks. I've got 2 of you guys that have sent in super chats that I don't have you on in here. So if it's a super thanks, I really truly do appreciate it. Post up if you have sent me a super chat and I can't see you. Just shoot me a message down here and let me know that you did. If you've got a question, I want to answer it. But I do apologize. There must be a glitch with YouTube or something because it's not showing that, which is weird. So if you sent a super thanks, I appreciate that very much. And if you send a super chat, post it up, man. I appreciate that though. And let me know that you did. But no, getting back to it though. So that it's kind of funny because the truck has yet to make more than 3 or 4 clean passes at the drag strip. And already, I mean, I had somebody ask, I think it was somebody that had been on the channel or had maybe seen some of my videos or maybe recognized me. And a guy comes up and said, hey, we're talking about the truck. And I was just telling him, yeah, check out, here's the data, and going over everything with him and just saying, yeah, anyway, long story short, it was cool. Whoever you are that I saw at the track, whoever your brother was or whatever, man, I appreciate you coming up and saying, hey, I was in the staging lanes trying to figure out if I could find, so if you're watching this, I was in the staging lanes, what I was looking for was a parameter to tell me what pattern the torque converter clutch was in. Just because at that point I figured I had fixed everything and was trying to figure out why it was leaving. I found out what the problem is. So it was just not locking the torque converter in first gear, which was allowing it to flash up. The problem with that is that you don't adjust with Dodges, you don't adjust the shift point based on RPM. You adjust the shift point based on output shaft RPM. And I should have qualified that with, you don't adjust the shift point based on engine RPM. You adjust it based on transmission output shaft RPM. I know it's confusing. And when you're getting into Mopar tuning, this is one of the reasons why you really need to have an ability to speak fluent Mopar. So if your converter doesn't lock for whatever reason, and it locks perfectly on the street, when you see me out there doing the no prep events, which are done on a closed street, what you will see is that it shifts at 5200 every time on the 1-2. It's just that if it for whatever reason leaves that converter unlocked, it'll shift at 57. It doesn't hurt anything to shift that high. It just kills about half a tenth ish of ET. Half a tenth to a tenth of ET is lost when it just wraps out that high, and it's because of where it falls. It's not that it's revving that high. That's only 100 RPM past peak horsepower. But the proper way to tune transmissions is to initially go off of torque numbers and then go off of horsepower numbers for your shift point. So anyway, a little bit of a trade secret there for you guys, by the way. BB's hanging out with Roy. Here we go. Simon said, I wish Dodge was not owned by anybody that would have more freedom. Yeah. Chuck saying, don't Stellantis my scat pack for sure there. Ardell saying, no power brokers anywhere. Man, that's, well, listen. It ain't like they're doing you a whole lot of favors if they were right next door to your house, man. I promise you that. BB's hanging out with Sovereign. Terrell's asking if I've been able to get 17-inch rims to fit on the back of my Challenger. Yeah, they are right there. I was hoping to get some welds. I currently run a 315-35 R20, and even with 5mm spacers, I get a little bit of rubbing issues. Yeah, so here's the thing. To get a 315 to fit in a Challenger is all but impossible. The thing about a 315-35 is that they're the same height, technically, as your stock fronts, but the issue is that you really have to go with 305s. There's just too much of a headache, really, trying to get a 315 to fit back there. That is one of the reasons why I was so adamant when I was working with, or visiting with a Turo tire, was if you make a 315, it has to be a small 315, and it needs to spec out no bigger than the 555R that Nitto makes. The 555 R2 Elemento Q whatever, that drag radial is actually, it specs like a very, not a very small, it specs as a kind of small 315, which is why even after running Mickey Thompson ET Street SS's, I still had to do even more fender well massaging and moving around and heating up and rebending and all this other stuff to those inner wheel wells to get these tires to fit. And they will, every once in a while on a turn, you'll hear it just go, but that's it. It's not really hurting anything. It's not rubbing on anything. And I'm using the replica, the factory replica wheels, and those tires fit it okay, but nothing fits as well as the Mickey Thompson SS's. Those, in terms of fitment, are really, really good. They're just having some quality issues. Also with the 17s, I would be remiss if I didn't tell you, you are going to need shorter end link, or shorter sway bar end links. Go to Beefcake to get those. Super easy to swap in and out. And also, oh man, I wonder, the car is on the ground. If I had the car at least even up on ramps, I would show this to you. But if you're deciding to go with 17s, when you put them on the back of your car, make sure that you chase all of your wires, all of anything that has anything to do with your the speed sensors, the Hall effect sensors for your your speed sensors for your car. Make sure nothing is touching, nothing is rubbing. And a lot of times those harnesses can kind of get a little bit out of whack. So don't just get the end links. Make sure when you're doing this, get your zip ties and make sure that nothing is touching and nothing is coming close to that rim. I had this issue and damn, I got something in my face. What is that? Anyway, stray hair. I had an issue where I'd actually eaten through one of the wires, one of the parts of the harness. And so I had to go in, I had to re-splice everything together, and it's not like sketch level midnight, but I mean, it ain't exactly factory, but it works great and everything's cool. But just know that you're going to have some of that coming into it, word to the wise. And if you choose to go that route, again, make sure you pay special attention to every one of the wires and connectors and everything else. Make sure nothing is rubbing and doesn't have the opportunity to rub. But always make sure you got those shorter end links if you're going to run 17s. Oh, and it makes no difference with how the car handles or anything like that. It just moves that bar up and out of the way. Summer's saying dumpster diaper fire. Trademark. I like it. Thanks, buddy. Hartel. Laughing. See you when you get back, Summer. Frederick's saying, what's cooking, B? Oh, man, I just got new shades today, too. Don't have them. But he's got the cadence in. I like it. Yes. Scott saying he recently got a 2020 regular body Hellcat. Been to the track 2 times. 60 foot is like a boat anchored with stock tires. Yeah, that's not going to help you. What kind of tire and rim would you suggest for the track? Plus, could I just change the rears? Yeah, you can. So if it's a daily, this is what I recommend. Get you another set of stock tires, or stock rims rather, and depending on how often you're going to the drag strip, this is something that if you're going to the track 3, 4, or 5 times a year, it would probably be a good idea to just go ahead and get a set of drag radials for your car. I would initially say that I prefer, it depends on the laws about where you're at and how far you have to drive to the track and everything else. Your best bet is to get a set of 17, something that is bespoke to drag racing, and run a set of Mickey Thompson ET Street Rs. Now, the problem with that, though, right now is that quality is somewhat in question, and there's not that many people that make a 305 45 17 that'll work. I can tell you that if you get an 18-inch wheel and tire setup, you won't have to worry about end links, and for that, you get the Bravados, and those tires would be 305 45 18s. Now, they're slightly taller than these, but they do give you a little bit bigger footprint, and they're a little bit easier to get a hold of, and I think the quality on those tires is arguably a little bit better through Mickey Thompson for the ET Street Rs. If this is something that you're going to be taking to the track a whole lot, that's the route that I would go. If not, get you a set of, I say this, Nitto Tri-5 R2s are really good tires. Stock size 275 40 20s will do you just fine if you've got 262 gears. We all used to actually run those tires or ET Street SSs. Now that's, on a different size rim, but you can get them for 20s. And man, they did a fantastic job hooking up. And, we were running 1070, 1060 with those tire and wheel setups. So you can absolutely do that. So again, it just depends on how often you're going to be taking the car to the track. I can tell you that the better tire, the more of a dedicated drag race tire that you put on the back of the car, the more fun that you'll have at the drag strip, because they're just going to hook every single time. Now remember, if you go with tires like these are still radials, so you don't air them down like you do slicks. And the lowest air pressure I'll ever suggest with radials like this is going to be something like 18 or 19 PSI. Anything less than that, and it pisses off the carcass on these things, and they get wonky on the footprint, just gets inconsistent after that. I've seen guys try to really cut the bottom out of those things, thinking that they're going to act like slicks. They don't act like slicks at that point. And don't try to run bias plies, by the way, on the back of your car. Somebody says, yeah, run AT Street Rs or whatever, and run a bias. I do not ever recommend running bias ply on independent rear cars, for one, and two, cars that are as heavy as ours. There's just not, in my opinion, I mean, I know guys have done it, but stick with what works, especially at your power level. You can get out there and have a whole lot of fun with that hot rod and not ever have to worry about stability issues. By the way, these are Nitto was said NTO5s. They're not that. These are Nitto DBRs, which is a drag bracket radial. And those are the tires that I would suggest if you are fairly close to the track and you're not going to be making any street hits. These things are the most forgiving, nicest, sweetest, kindest tire that you can buy. And the only downside to them, though, is that they're really not a street compound. So you don't want to be driving long distances with that type of a compound. So hopefully that helps you. Gary, thanks a lot, man. And by the way, guys, there's a couple of you guys that have sent in super chats. I can't see you. So thank you all again. If it's you that did it, post up your comments, or at least just let me know that you did, because I don't see super thanks and super chats on here, or super thanks on here at all. And I don't know why I'm not seeing your super chats, but I do appreciate it, guys. I really do. Ardell saying, what's up, Gary? I like that, Chuck. I like it. Maybe that's what it was. Did Chuck buy an emoji? Little emoji guy? But thank you, brother. Ardell saying the Challenger beat Ford Mustang in sales. I just read that yesterday. It did. You're exactly right, Ardell. And as a matter of fact, it beat it for all the reasons that you would expect it to beat it. It's a big car. It's comfy. It's American. It's, well, North American, right? But it's just such a good car. It's got such the durability with the Challenger. I will argue. Now, there's some that'll argue against this, and they have their own perspective, but you know, it's funny. A lot of folks talk about how the Challenger is big, it's heavy, it's a tank. You know, yeah, it makes a lot of power, but it's not as fast because listen, you know, tanks aren't fast, but they're built like tanks and they're durable. That's one of the things I've noticed about the Mopars, is that, say what you will about where it falls in line on the whole speed graph. By the way, you put that thing on a tire on a drag strip and they are hell to pay if you line up next to one and you're not on your game. And even if you are, you still may be watching taillights for most of that pass. But the funny thing about it is that this is the free market dictating what sells. That's definitely one of the trucks. So as you guys know, I'm right here by the border. Velocito is literally just right over the bridge. So yeah, there's some folks heading out there to go have some fun. Anyway, getting back to it, the Challenger, it's, you know, the Mopars in general were always just big, heavier duty feeling cars. They always felt like they were built with sterner stuff, regardless of how you wanted to talk about the 392 being, you know, pistons are made of glass and all this other stuff. Well, you know, from an NA perspective, that engine is got a lot of good things going for it. And manufacturers don't build their cars for the potential. They build their cars for the performance of the finished product. So, and that's really where that comes into play. If Ford would have done the same for the Coyote, you could have probably expected about a 10% bump in power, but it just would not have been, it'd been the same situation with the Ford as it is with the 392 in terms of actual power to be managed, at least through boost. So kind of gives you an idea of where they're at with that. Someone's saying he's back. I like it. Slash saying, hey, B, what's up, Slash? So main takeaway here on this, though, guys, is, When I'm talking about Stormy here at this point, getting back to the whole Stormy conversation, she's actually doing really good. And the funny thing about it is that not only is that truck doing really well, but again, it's one of those weird things where I'm starting to get to know the truck's quirks a little bit better. There's a third gear torque converter lockup pattern that is just, it's like throwing cats on a chalkboard to me. So let me explain to you what I'm talking about here. Let me give you a brief history of why this drives me nuts so much. When I was playing around with Ford Lightnings, one of the things that I took a lot of pride in was my transmission tuning. And I tuned with SCT Pro. The thing is that I could adjust when the torque converter locked up based on mile an hour. And I could do that for first gear, second gear, third gear, and fourth gear overdrive. Which meant that I actually had a truck that felt like it was an 8-speed truck. It's just that it would be first gear and then it would lock up. Second gear, unlock, get to a certain speed, lock. Third gear, unlock, get to a certain speed and lock. You get the idea. And it was done by mile per hour. And I kid you not, guys, there were throttle inputs where I was like, no, I have got to get it 1 mile an hour higher. And I would literally go in and boop on a third gear. Anyway, long story short, I can't do that with this transmission tune. Like, I can't go in and say, okay, third gear, I want you to stay unlocked until, pick a mile an hour. Okay, it could be anything, 50 miles an hour. Or I can't say, all right, I want first gear, you have to lock up at this mile per hour. It doesn't work like that. If I were to show you the number of lock strategies and unlock strategies in this transmission, you look at it and immediately feel drunk. I mean, it's just, you just go, I don't, why is this so complicated? It makes no sense. And I can see there being several different scenario based, but several, not 80 or whatever. It's an obnoxious number. It's like, why are there 99, literally 99 different shift patterns in these transmissions? 99. And the funny thing is that the truck only uses one for the most part. Actually, no, I'll take it back. It'll use 1, 2 shift strategies, maybe 3 if it's an ESL. ESC rather, electronic stability control, not ESL. Anyway, you get the idea. It's so frustrating though. So anyway, when I'm looking at that, that's something that I really do need to dive into that, figure out. I've never really had to mess with it before, but this one, there's the third gear one drives me nuts because there's a partial throttle tip in where it has the converter unlocked and then will fade into lock, and I'm going to just push that out 5 miles per hour. Like, I've done this before. Why can't I just do it with this truck? Anyway, kind of nutty, kind of weird, but it's just something. It's just a quirk, and I'm really okay with it. It's not really bugging me too much, but you get into doing this and you get to this little nth degree stuff, and it's all in drivability, guys. It's never wide open throttle. It's all drivability. I'm still trying to figure out how to clean up a 5-6 shift in Revlon. In fact, I just got to the point where I was like, screw it, I'll just live with it, because it's a quirk. It's a stock trans tune quirk that bled into my trans tune. I have it tuned out of every other issue. That issue tuned out of every other shift strategy and every other gear in that car, and it comes to the 5-6 shift, and it's a partial throttle, and it just kind of sits on the gear. It's kind of weird. So anyway, it's just, I don't know. But it's just weird. I'm having issues that I didn't have with, the HP 70 or HP 90 transmissions before. But we shall persevere. Just making sure I'm not missing anybody here, guys. Hang on. I don't think I have. And again, Gary, I appreciate it, man. And again, for you guys that sent in the anonymous super chats, thank you very much. But yeah, Stormy's doing really well, and again, couldn't be happier with that truck. Again, it's just one of the weirdest things. I never thought I would actually like this truck. In fact, I bought it because I kind of had to, and now I just keep liking it, and I keep liking it. It's faster. I'll put it like this: it's faster than my DS Ram with 392 gears by a fairly significant margin, given the fact that it's got 321s. So definitely right in there with it, DA for DA. But in cooler weather on the street, it was tougher to get those 392 gears to hook. Although the DS with 392s, if you guys have a DS Ram, which is the older body style, kind of like the classic, get that thing with 392s in a no slip, and that is the right way to go with 20-inch wheels with that truck. So it equates to what would be the equivalent of having 355 gears into a DT Ram, which puts it in a really kind of a sweet spot, really, with these trucks. But the 321s with these DTs on the highway freaking rip, and you get the tune right, they are really hard to mess with on the street from a launch, because they hook up and bounce. So and I almost feel like I've lost. What? Hang on. It's almost like I've lost the feed. You know what? It's almost like I've lost. I just noticed this. Am I still live? Because it's almost like I lost a feed right at 9:18. I have no more. Let me try something here. Okay, I think I just figured it out. Okay, so let me get back to where I was. Good grief. Roy, thank you very much. Appreciate the super chat. And again, guys, I do apologize that I lost most of. There's one super chat that I don't have an account ability for. Hang on, guys. That was so weird. Hold on, let me try something here. Sorry, I'm just getting back over here trying to check in with you guys. There's still one super chat, guys. If one of y'all sent me a super chat between 9:22 and 9:31, I can't see it. I got Roy's, and now Roy's disappeared. What is up with this? This is so crazy. Anyway, let me scroll back up here real quick and just keep rocking. Sorry, guys. Chuck saying that's weird. He's seeing the super chats. Yeah. So now I can't scroll back any further than 9:31. Let me try this. Oh, that didn't do any good. A little glitch in the matrix. Now it slid back into 36. Okay, well, let me just get back to this. The first one that I have that I can see is Damien's, saying that he did the 315 on his Challenger. It can be done. It absolutely can be done. Some manufacturers' 315s are just bigger than others, wider than others. And as a matter of fact, the Nitto is, I forget the exact section width on it, but it specs out like a 315. I've also heard of some 315s specking out. And by the way, hey, Damien, which brand 315 did you run with? Curious, because this is kind of a gray area for a lot of guys. Like, okay, well, some guys can run a 315 and other guys cannot. I'm curious as to which 315 you ran and what year your car is. Again, there seems to be a little bit of some confusion. Like, were the older cars? Was there something different with the wheel well with the newer cars or what? So if you could post up that would be awesome. Oh, Riff saying he had to cut his plastic fender well a little bit. Yep. Massage that inner fender well. Danny said, but there is a way to do it. 30 millimeter spacers. Oh, he's talking about a 17-inch. Oh, 315. I got you. Oh, Rift is. Damien saying he's got 315, 35, 20. Oh, he's saying his profile pic is that tire. I can barely see the profile pics on this one. We're saying, why don't they make Mickey Thompson 315, 35, 20? Kept looking for him, and the only size he could find was Nitto. It's because the Mickey Thompson makes the 305, 35, 20, but they make it in the same height. It's actually the same height as the 275 40, but it's made to fit a 10.5-inch wide wheel. It's a tall, it's like a 295 40 height is basically what it is almost. Or you could actually just say, screw it. You can say it's a 315 35 height, but it's a 305 width. And it's actually kind of a narrow 305 too. It's a really good looking tire and they work so well. Oh, Chuck saying, I think the most I can squeeze onto my stock rims is the 275s it came with on my 2001 Scat with a dynamic package. Actually, the dynamic has a 9.5-inch wide wheel. Here's the problem, and this is another thing. So 295 40, depending on the manufacturer, actually fits that rim really nice. And it is slightly, it's like that much taller than a 275. But they look really good. And as a matter of fact, that was one of the tires I was going to put on the back of Little Miss Revlon back here. Guys, I apologize. One of you guys, I am not able to see the super chat. I saw Roy, I saw Chuck. Now I can't see. Oh, this sucks. Hang on, let me try something else here. I'm going to see how far back I can go into the chat. Yeah, 938. I don't know why it did that. And then when I go to hit the super chat specific, I just can't see anything, man. Weird. Yeah, I don't know, guys. Glitch in the matrix or something. I'm over here trying to fix it as best I can. Now, yeah, it's still 938. Hang on. Bear with me here. Oh, Rick saying he really didn't like the Nitto, so he just stuck with the 305s as a daily with the SSs. It's a good looking tire. It's probably in waiting to see what ends up coming out of a Turo, that may end up being what I replace the Nittos with here, probably in the next, I don't know, however long I run the tires on me. If I can get a set of the Turos, I'll definitely grab them. That's for sure. Oh, Jamie's saying to start new rims and make sure that it's 10 by 5. I think it's saying 10.5. Oh, so the tire will fit correctly on the rim. That is correct. Oh, Chuck saying Sticky Mickeys are sweet tires, better than Nitto. But teacher, so the Mickeys, the thing is, Mickey is the ET Street SS for the longest time was the go-to tire if you couldn't get the old school Tri-5 R's. The old school Tri-5 305/35 was a really, really good tire. And they replaced it with the R2 for reasons. Okay. I still don't get why. But it was with that change that I quit buying Nittos. I mean, I had no reason to buy Nittos anymore if they did away with the tire that I had been using for years and years and years that was working really, really well at a lot of, really aggressive power numbers. So, yeah, when they went to this new one, I thought, okay, well, how bad could it be? And the tire itself is not the problem, although it is. I don't know if it's because of the tread pattern. I don't know if it's because of a compound issue. It doesn't seem to hook as well as the Tri-5. Yeah, it could be personal, just brain thinking that, though. It could be a better compound. I don't know. One thing I will say about them, though, is that they don't have that confidence inspiring dead hook ability the way that the Mickey Thompsons always did. But they're really good for guys that need a drag radial. And if you've got a car that is making, I don't know, 600 horsepower or less to the wheels, it's going to be a really good tire. It'll be tough to beat. The problem with that, though, is that Scat Packs and Hellcats have a tendency to make a whole lot of power way down low, so you can still haze them pretty good. The Foham is saying, finally got some 10.5 factory reproduction and 305 Tri-5 R2s. They're amazing. Anything else I should do before going to my first test and tune? Car is a stock manual. So what I would suggest, air pressure for you with those tires is going to be around 23 PSI. 22, 23 for the manual. Oh, for that, really for all of them, but for the manuals, unfortunately, you just can't go any deeper than that with that tire. Come out of the hole, don't just light switch it. Come out of the hole, just kind of feed the power into it, and those tires will take it pretty good. So, but they're really good to, getting back to those tires. The Nittos, here's the funny thing about the Nittos. The Tri-5s handle like a street tire. They don't handle like a drag radial. Like what you would think of if you were old school, just kind of getting back into things where you remember the drag radials being a little bit wallowy. It's not like that at all. It feels like it's on a basic Tri-5 carcass, just with a stickier compound. It's getting away with the stickier compound and for the traction. It's not utilizing sidewall or anything like that. It's not using any flexing the way that something like that would right there. It doesn't mess with that. It's just a stickier compound. But I want to say, excuse me, I want to say that those are they 100? 200. I don't think that they're 200. 888s are 200. And the Toyo 888s, and even they hook about like a set of Nittos do, but Nittos are a lot cheaper. Oh, Damien's saying, yeah, Mickeys don't have that size. You just got to find what hooks and grab it. Yeah. BB saying, hating the supply chain problems. I call 6 places for a Mopar rear seat delete. Nowhere local here in Dallas. 1 place in New York. Had it been charging $180 for shipping. Jeez, yeah. See if they can do an inter-store transfer or something like that. But yeah, $180 to ship that thing. Here's the thing, it's shipped by dimension too, because that when you get that box, you'll think that you just bought a box. There's no weight. It weighs 8 or 9 pounds. I can't remember. The box weighs more than the stuff that's in the box. Captain Boo's saying I got the Nitto R2s, the 315/40 18s. Nice. On my OEM Demon wheels on the 6.1, and they do hook very good. Very nice. What sucks is they don't make an NT05 in 305/35 or 305 if they can make a 305/40. You'd think that'd be kind of cool, but they don't, and it sucks because you can't. Right, that would be an awesome tire for the street. Oh, Chuck saying on his RT Shaker, I ran both Nitto and Mickey Thompson's, and the Mickey Thompson's got me a quicker time by 2/10, but part of it was B helping me with my shifting techniques. Well, that was all you, brother. I just tried to break you off a little bit of experience that I've got, and you took it and ran with it, so I'm stoked that it worked. Ripped is asking, what would be a good way to paint my Hellcat replica black wheels a different color? I mean, it's the same as anything. Scotch Brite, a little bit of primer, and tag them with whatever color you want. 6-pack of your favorite beverage, and by the time you're done with the 6-pack, the wheels will be done typically. So nothing really to it. I prefer, there's a wheel, you can get all this stuff through Rattle Cannon, but there's a wheel clear that I would prefer. I had restored some cop wheels that I put on a notchback, on my old notchback Mustang, and I used just Scotch Brite, an air hose, some 91% alcohol to wipe everything down once I was done scuffing and everything. High temp primer, just because, you know, VHT high temp. Pick a color that you like. Doesn't matter what it is. Excuse me. And then hit it with the wheel primer. I think it's just a little bit thicker, gives a little bit more resistance to rock chips. And the main thing is just to go easy with it, mask everything up. If you're gonna not take the tire off the rim, just mask it. And yeah, that's it. Nothing to it. I mean, I've had to touch up mine here and there, and I use just cheap flat black spray paint. Just can't even tell I've hit it. So, but yeah, if you want to get them a different color, whatever color it is, I like to say that the higher temp paint works better just because it's going to be near brake components that get hot. So at least consider it as an option. And again, the wheel clear, I don't have any here. I want to say it's got a little bit thicker mill thickness when you spray it, but don't treat it any differently than anything else. Just spray it on there and let it dry. Like I say, you'll be done with it before you know it. But prep is the main thing. Riff saying, I've got bias ply 18-inch skinnies for my drag pack setup, and I think that was a mistake on a heavy car like a Hellcat. No matter what PSI, they always look low. Okay, fun fact, by the way, the SRs that I've got right over there, right there. I see a lot of guys at the drag strip with the, well, let me just go grab a break. Hang on. Come here. So, I don't know if this is going to come up, and I got to find it on here. God dang. I'll tell you what, by the way, speaking of which, Ford Star wheels. These things are freaking heavy. There's only about, I don't know, it's like a 15-pound difference or whatever between these and the stock wheels. It's kind of funny. Anyway, but they're heavy for a good reason. It's because they got to hold up the front half of a 4,400, 4,600 pound car going down the drag strip. Anyway, these are, let me try to get the thing over here. Anyway, Sportsman SRs. And what I find is that this tire, it's also heavy. I mean, I run a heavy drag pack. The reason why I run a heavy drag pack is because I have a heavy car and I'm not trying to get away with something when it comes to weight. These tires were, in essence, developed to run on Hellcats and Mopars. They're heavy, but they got a lot of steel in them to make them stable at high speeds. With all that being said, though, you run them at a high PSI. I run mine at 77 PSI. They're designed to run up to max is 95, if I remember correctly. And you have to make sure that you get the high pressure valves when you're running these things. But yeah, these are, what was the PSI on this thing? 90 or 95 PSI is the max, and I run mine at 77. Maybe it's on this other side. Where's the damn thing at? Now that I'm over here talking about it, you think I'd know this stuff. Yeah, 95 PSI. Maximum load, 1,850 pounds at 95 PSI. See what I mean? They're, you know, I just didn't want to stop bouncing. But they're heavy because they're heavy duty, and I always caution guys, look, when it comes to these Mopars, try not to fall into the trap of thinking that you can treat them like a 3,500 pound car. You really kind of can't. And what's not funny, but it's just, it is what it is. You know, I see guys running them at 45 PSI, and they legit look like they're flat, like they're low, and they're not designed to run at that low of a PSI. I mean, I would never dream of running those tires at any less than probably 65 PSI at the lowest. 70, actually, now that I think about it, probably be the lowest I would run those tires. Let's see. Yeah, talking about bias plies on these Mopars. So, Racer X with excessive used to run bias plies front and rear, and he made a pass. We were at the track, and he had made a pass in excessive. So if you're not familiar with why bias plies are not a good idea on a Challenger, or really anything with independent rear suspension, is you have constant, even when you're under full load, you can have some shifting, and as you shift load, the contact patch changes because it's independent rear suspension. And as you can imagine, you've got, you know, two lower control arms, for example, and this one moves a little bit, this moves a little bit, or whatever. Well, you can think of, if these things are flat and the tire is flat, right? So everything's in alignment. If something moves a little bit, the suspension articulates, you lose contact patch on that particular tire. Well, kind of like riding a motorcycle. When you lose contact patch or you tilt the wheel up like this, the car's gonna want to drift. Well, if you've got kind of opposing forces going on, it doesn't really matter. The car stays stable. But the problem is you get this shimmy where the car will actually do a little bit of this going down the drag strip. It used to have it happen a lot in the Vipers, because that's all we ever ran were bias plies way back then. It's all they had. So we're making hits 170, 180 miles an hour on bias ply tires on the street. Not ideal, but the car only weighed 3,400 pounds, so it's one thing when you're messing with that. His car is 4,600 pounds, and this thing's just doing this. So from the back, you see this thing just wagging all the way down the track, and I was just going, Jesus Christ. Put radials on it. Anyway, it's just one of those funny things when you're watching this and you're going, his ass tight, son. Anyway, it's just funny. Let's see. Oh, Summer's saying that's the charm to the challenge. Oh, talking about probably when I was talking about it being big. Ardell's liking the Challenger. Me too. Oh, Chuck's going to be swapping out the Pirellis. Man, the Pirellis haven't been the most awesome tire. I mean, they're not bad. They're just not super awesome. Oh, Terrell's hanging out with Rift. Yes, John's asking about power stop. What do I have, guys? Z26s? Is that what's on my car? You have to go all the way around with them, though. Don't just do the fronts. You need to do the fronts and the rears. They have a different coefficient of friction than the stock brake pads do. They don't have as hard or as strong of an initial bite. But believe me when I tell you, you you will adjust without even thinking about it. You'll adjust to how the brake pads feel, but they are mandatory, in my opinion, for having a brake pad that works great. I mean, it woes my car down from some pretty obnoxious speeds, and I've never had an issue with them. But don't mix them with stock pad. In other words, don't go, don't go power stop up front with like the Z26s with stock rears. It ain't gonna like that very much. It's gonna be unbalanced. The braking will be. So you have to do all the way around. But when you do that, you'll thank yourself, believe me, because your brake dust situation is going to go to nil. By the way, something that I am loving about Stormy with this e-torque thing is with all the e-torque braking that it does, the rims, even after 4,300 miles or whatever, are still spotless. I don't know if they changed brake pad manufacturers along with it, but that's been a nice little bonus and a benefit to that e-torque if that's the case. Sovereign say the Challenger doesn't look like anything else for sure. Oh, Trill saying he really wants a set of welds that will mostly clear, preferably 10.5s. Welds are good wheels. Just make sure. The only issue that I have with welds is the weight of these cars. Don't go trying to get the lightest weight weld you can find, because what you may find is that it is the least durable of all of them. They look great. What are they called? I can see it in my head. I just can't project it on the screen. Anyway, the one that you always see with the black inner with the chrome, the one everybody's got them. Anyway, those seem to be okay for street and strip, but just don't try to get the Featherlight stuff. Don't ever do that on the street. Because listen, even if that is a drag race only rim, and even guys that only run those wheels at the drag strip will warp some of those wheels, especially with some of the newer, heavier cars that are out there. CTSVs, Challengers, SSs, the Cop Special car, the Fleet car. All of those cars are heavy, and they do a number on those wheels. Ruth's hanging out with Terrell. Let's see. Oh, Sovereign's. Oh, yeah. 392 is an awesome engine. Damien said, I immediately changed the 245 from 275. And then when I put the 315s on, I couldn't go back to the 275s. It just felt weird. I get it. I love the 275s on the stock scat wheels on the 9-inch wides. That just looks so good. Ardell said, Sovereign, you are right. 392s are awesome, yeah. Chuck said, Challengers rule the drag strip. Lots of hearts broken by them. Trash talkers will always be clueless. Well, okay, so to that point. So Friday night, last night, in this case, last night at the track, and what I wanted to do is I just wanted to go and kind of hang out, get the truck down the track a few times. It was pretty clear it wasn't going to hook. So, and again, nothing against the drag strip and nothing against their prep. I'm just in a vehicle that is on a set of tires that is not designed for drag racing at all. So you can't fault it. So I knew that there were other methods that I could employ to get the data that I was looking for. And so I decided I was going to go ahead and wrap it up a little bit early and watch some racing. And I tell you something, it was pretty fun just being a spectator. And I got to tell you, you don't realize how fast an 1150 or an 1190 car is until you're sitting at about half track watching the thing go by. It's pretty fast, to say the least. An 1190 car looks pretty impressive getting down the track. An 1150 car or 40 car is pretty impressive going down the track. So, it's kind of funny. People talk about fast, what is fast and all of this. But, man, go to the drag strip and watch some of these things get down the drag strip and sit further down the actual quarter mile. Don't just sit I was sitting about as far down as I could, and just had fun. I was just hanging out by myself, watching the races, eating a Frito pie, and just did kind of an old school trip, man. It's the things I used to do when I would just go to the drag strip if I was doing logging or testing or whatever, and just check it out, talk to folks, get to know some people, and be a little bit more social this time than what I normally am, where I'm just with a computer in the car trying to get something nth degreed, or every once in a while having to deal with some numbskull that I just kind of go, gene pool really does account for that. Anyway, most guys are super good though. Most guys are super cool. Oh, Trill's hanging out with Rift. Let's see. Trill's gonna get after it, my man. I like it. So I did excuse me. I did a video which was kind of showcasing what you can do to move the plastic around. Excuse me. But what it basically entails is this. You just get a drill. You may have to remove some of you will have to remove some of the Christmas tree push pins, the push rivets. Remove those, and you can push that fender well further up and kind of get it out of the way where it curves around and down on the backside. If you push that up, get you a little punch with you when you take that thing out, push it up and just pop the fender liner with that punch. That'll tell you where the hole's going to be. Drill the hole. I forget. I think it was I don't know, maybe a little bit bigger than 1/4 of an inch for that push pin to slide in there and grab. And you're done. I mean, you're just it knocks it right out. So there's that. In some cases, you may need to massage, and the guys that have gone that big can tell you a little bit more about that. But make sure you get that. Make sure you place the fender well further up into the car, and again, remove the push pins and scoot it back there. You'll feel it, pop it in, and then you'll feel it on the other side. You can kind of push it back up, and then drill your hole and pop it back in there. And a heat gun comes in real handy with that too. So I had a heat gun on mine. I would heat it up. Don't get it right there on it, but I'd heat up the plastic and just kind of push it up and in there with a 2x4. I did that, and then I had whenever you do something like that, the trick, by the way, make sure I'm not screwing this up here. So, Charles, what you'll do is get you like just a towel with your heat gun, and when you get the holes punched and everything else, you kind of get everything kind of tucked up in there, and you want to push it up in there a little bit more. Get your heat gun and get to cooking it, and kind of push the thing up there with the like a 2x4 or something like that, and then get you a cold wet towel, and when you get it about where it's kind of just a little bit soft, not super soft, you don't want it drooping, but when you can kind of tell, like by touching it, it's got a little bit of give to it. Get that towel after you've kind of pushed it up there a little bit with that 2x4 or whatever. Get you a towel, and a wet towel, and stick it up on there and cool it off real quick. And if it's nice and kind of damp, you can kind of force it up in there, and it'll kind of take the shape of that fender well, and it'll make that thing take its shape real quick. So that's kind of a top tip from yours truly on how to help get that fender liner a little bit more kind of tucked up in there, if you will. Chuck saying he's still rocking, the 275 40s. So I'm saying like, share, and subscribe for sure. Dr. Div saying, sorry, just jumping on. It's an open chat. Open chat is the thing. The topic. Oh, Damien likes the spacer look. The only thing I don't like necessarily about the spacers is that you reduce the amount of purchase that the lug nut itself actually has on the stud. So just don't go real wide with it, if possible. Dr. New saying, grabbing a beer to join the live feed after building a 4L60E. Nice. Good to see you, Doc. I'm 30 years old. Why did you come to McAllen, Texas for? Oh, why do I go to McAllen? Usually it's work. I have clients in McAllen. Dr. New saying, hey, oh, hanging out with Chuck. So I'm saying switch to live chat at the top. That's the thing. I guess, yeah, this is about the time where everything went weird. What was with the feed? The funny thing about it, though, is that I didn't change anything. That's what was so weird about it. Okay, I'm getting to about the point, yeah, 9:50. So what time is it now? I'm running about 30 minutes behind on the chat here. See, about this time, you guys all started hanging out, and that's where it goes, welcome to live chat. Oh, Sovereign's asking about Racer X's petition. Get on the petition, guys. Dr. New saying, maybe somebody donated $1 million. I'd let you know if that happened. Oh, Riff saying, his cat's making about 9 bills to the wheels. Yeah, the Nittos aren't going to give you much confidence when you're making that kind of power, especially the kind of power, especially when you're making the power the way that the Hellcat does, along with being an independent rear car. I mean, you can get away with that kind of power in like an older GT500 where it's a lot of torque, but it's a solid rear axle. Or you can get away with that kind of power with an independent rear if it's in a turbo style application where it doesn't hit everything all at once from like a point of inertia, which is like at 0. So you can, but with the Hellcat, and really anything with a positive displacement supercharger and a lot of power, it makes it really difficult because you get all this torque way down low and it's independent rear. So it's a lot to ask. In fact, I've got a set of, it's enough to where this is the thing, and this is one of the reasons why I'm kind of debating on going with a, you know, maybe a different set of knuckles or something like that, although it doesn't really need it. When your contact patch is tilted, so I can do it with this a little bit better, this roll of paper towel. So let's say this is your tire on the ground with a solid rear axle. It will be flat. It'll be dead flat. Well, with an independent rear, there's always a little bit of negative camber. So you can see right here on your, whatever, right side, there's going to be more pressure on the inside of the tire. So you have this part of the tire thinking that the car is heavier, this part of the tire thinking that the car's about right, and this part of the car thinking that it's lighter. But the reality is that your footprint, I'm looking at this line right here on my screen, your footprint is really only this wide. So you've got a footprint that is less than the width of the actual tire on an independent rear suspension car. Now, when you launch and that suspension compresses, even by just a little bit, I mean, it's not just, you know, like that, but, you know, even by just a small amount like that, you can see how that would affect how much more pressure you're putting on the inside part of the tire and how much less you are out here. As a matter of fact, my 305s that I run, these guys right here, it's the right size for the rim, and I wouldn't want to run a smaller tire, but this part of the tire right here, if this is the outside in that scenario that I was just giving you guys, this part of the tire does get wear, but it's not very much. And you can see that, again, these are fairly new still, but you can see that in the wear dimples in the tire where it wears it out from the inside out. It's kind of an interesting thing that it does. So let's see. Ruth's saying, actually, I was only making 830 at the time. Man, 830 is still a lot. Oh, guys, hang on. Sorry, saying shipping's expensive. Oh, Jeremy's saying he's picking up a rear seat delete for $1.75. Nice. I was saying sometimes the shipping costs more than the parts, for sure. Oh, Himmy Head saying, hey, the old Netto NT Tri 5Rs were awesome. Last set I got was the last lot before they went to the R2. Not real happy with them. Yeah, that's what I heard. Looking forward to Turo drag radios when they come out this spring. That's what I'm hoping for. Talking to Turo about 2 weeks ago, and they were hoping that it was going to be Q1 of 23. So fingers crossed, man. I'm looking forward to getting my hands on some for sure. Oh, Jeremy's liking the Proxies. I've heard some good things about those tires. Oh, Brandon's saying he's got the Raystar 305 4517. Everyone told me he needed a sway bar in length. They went on right on, no problem. You know, I've heard some don't have an issue. I don't know if it's a run lot of Hellcats that just happen to have slightly shorter or maybe significantly shorter rear sway bar end lengths. It's just kind of weird. I've heard of some guys not needing them. I know I had to have them, and it's been hit and miss. I've never had anybody ever say, okay, after 2017 you don't need them, or in 2018 they made a change to the vendor for end lengths or something. I don't know. Never did hear about that, but I have heard that some guys don't need them. I always put it out there that you might need them, or that you do just go ahead and get them because they're easy to swap out. But yeah, I've heard of that. I'm going, I don't know. I've seen cars absolutely have to have them. Mine absolutely had to have them, but some guys don't. Oh, we're just hanging out with Brandon. Let's see. Oh, Sovereign saying, I recall the 440-70 Challenger was in the 14. Speed has come a long way. Dude, you ain't lying. So here's the funny thing. It's kind of funny that all of the muscle cars, except for what they were calling a supercar. Now, I don't know what a supercar means by today's standards, but what they were calling a supercar back then was like a big block, like a significant big block. You know, LS6 454 would fall under that. Of course, a Hemi, a 440. You know, any of the Cobra Jet cars, those would all fall under maybe that supercar. But all of those, the Stage 1 Buicks. Obviously, there were some hot rod Pontiacs that were in there. All of those cars were called supercars. Well, it was rare to see. I mean, there was only a handful of them that would run in the 13s. You would have like most of them were big blocks. You had a few small blocks that would get down in there, but for the most part, a 13-second car was a big block powered contraption. There just wasn't any way around that. And say what you want about tire technology and everything else, but slicks were slicks even back then, and a lot of those cars had a hard time running 1350s even on slicks. As a matter of fact, check out any of the older direct connection catalogs, and you'll see that even the 426, they had 13-second bracket combinations for those cars. Could you imagine having a 426 Hemi and running 13s with that thing? Guys did it, and they bracket raced them, and they had a bracket combo for those things. And this wasn't throttle stops or anything else. It was just a, you know, hydraulic flat tap it, 10.5 to 1, 426. They ran 13s. That's just kind of how it worked out. So, oh, Riv said he went 1066 in his Hellcat fully stocked, except for some wheels and tires. I think mine, God, I've got to try to sit here and remember. Oh, it's been forever. what did that thing run? It was either a 72 or a 68. I don't think it went a 66. I think it was a 72. I wasn't DA chasing at all with it when I ran the number. I know that. So I'll go with 70 just because I can't really remember the exact number. Somewhere between 68 and 72, but which oddly enough is 70. So, and it was a pretty good night, the night that I ran the car. But yeah, it was bone stock, which surprised me, to be honest, because the 15s, I mean, they run really good, don't get me wrong, but I don't know. I just, for whatever reason, it's my car. I wasn't really expecting it to cover a number any quicker than a 1085, 1082. And y'all know, guys, listen, I still am over the moon impressed with the way that car runs. I mean, check her out back over here. It looks like she's dragging the front tire on that one. I am over the moon with how well the car runs, because to me it's running numbers it has no right to run. And you might say, well, you pulled some weight out of it and whatever. Well, not a whole lot. I mean, guys, remember, I just took the car to the drag strip. What was it? A week ago. It was a week ago. And ran a couple of 1040s with, just a mix of crapola gasoline. In fact, I've got to burn. That reminds me, I got the street setup obviously back on the car. I've got to run that car once a week, for sure, once every 2 weeks. And then leading up to January, I've got to run that car. I've got to run fuel through that car consecutively until the track rental. So, yeah, it's because, believe me when I tell you, the first hit that I made, knock retard was just blah, 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 all over the place. So, and by the end of the night, there was none. So, yeah, I did go in and make make a tweak to make sure that I didn't have any, because it was just noise. But, yeah, car ran great. Ended up running a 1032 in, what was it? Like 1,000 foot or 980 foot DA. And to give you an idea, the car running a 1032, that is the fastest that car. I remember when it ran a 1037. And this is kind of story time with Brian here. So it's kind of funny. I never expected that car to run the number that it did. I just didn't really, it wasn't something I was really chasing with it. Right up until the point where it did run a 1037. And I was going, oh, damn, that's quick. And it went a 37, like kind of easy with the 309 gear. And so from there, I was thinking, okay, well, if this thing ever runs a 20 or whatever, that'd be crazy. I thought a teen was completely out of the question. And it ended up running one night at 0 DA. It ran a 1020. And it just blew my mind that this car that, is running on 93 octane gasoline has the chops to get out there and actually cover a number like that. And it's not like I hadn't run cars down the drag strip for guys. It's not like I hadn't. It's different when it's yours, number one, and it's also different when you're playing with stock boost. You don't really go into this with just expectations. You're not just this is going to be, we're going to march this thing into a number. You're not even thinking about it like that. So when it does run a number, you're going, damn, do I really even want to put pulleys on this thing? Because what the funny thing about all of this, if you want to call it funny, but leading up to the car running the 1020, and keep in mind, this was in a flat DA. It was a 1029 is what it ran in 0 DA. And at that point, or 1027, I'm sorry. And I was going, I don't want to put pulleys on the car anymore. It was literally going to be running the car over to pipes. And it was getting pulleys right after that. It was going to be basically an E85 based setup, basing it around a stock lower and a 295 or a 285 upper. And it was going to be injected engineering twin pump with ID 1000 injectors. It was basically going to be whatever data we got, the best data, that's the injector that it was going to get. And that was going to be the combination for that car. And it would be a combination that I could easily tune aggressively on E85 and then tune it somewhat conservatively and with a 285 upper with a stock lower. And again, it'd still be a 9-second car, but it would be a 9-second car basically on pump gas. And then Mean Cat did the 285 upper, tuned it on 93, and that car is running 970s, 980s, and it'll definitely run 990s, even in kind of some funky air. So it was just going to be a matter of how deep do you want to try to go on a low boost pulley. Well, damn, the thing went 1020s, and I was thinking, well, I want to see what I can do on stock boost now. And so now here we are. It almost at 1008. Still driving me nuts. Anyway, getting back to it. Stormy saying heat gun would make it more malleable for sure. Wet towel will cool the plastic to the new shape. Absolutely. Bruce saying, yeah, I cut a little bit of the plastic on the front bottom part and hit the metal a bit in. Didn't do all that stuff. You're saying, yeah. I don't know. I made it kind of a thing. Actually, that's the other thing I've got. Speaking of bending metal, splash guard for Stormy. This is that one that goes on the front side, and then it sits on there. From your point of view, it sits on there like this. And then on my side right here, that's where that fender liner goes, that chunk of steel just tore completely apart on that truck. Oh, and Sovereign's getting that petition out there again. Good deal. Sovereign Night tire footprint. Very good, man. I like it. Looks like Ardell's taking off. Got to get to work. I understand that completely. Oh, Jamie's saying, yeah, I've got 2 front tires that fit that exact example with the negative camber. Yep. Oh, Hemi's saying, I've thought about trying the eccentric rear camber bushings and reducing negative camber from its current 1.5 to about half to see if that makes a difference. I tell you what, one thing it'll definitely help you with is tire wear for sure. I know Speedy did that with his car, and it actually ended up hooking better on the street. Oh, Jeremy's asking, I've got a question. Would you get a new 1320 or a 15 Hellcat with 17K at the same price? Damn, that's hard. I'd get the new 1320, and I'll tell you why. Number one, it's got the new operating system, which to me, I know. 2, 15 Hellcat, it's got 17,000 miles on it, but you don't know how well it's been maintained potentially. If you do know the history on the Hellcat, I'll tell you that the Hellcat will be a more durable car for the most part. But that's not taking anything away from the 1320. The 1320 has probably got the softest spot in my heart, just because of a past friend. It had one that we spent a ton of time in on the street one night. He and I trying to see who could get the best ET out of it. And honestly, if I'd have known that he had passed earlier on, I would have probably bought the car that we were running. He had 2 1320s. I'd have probably made a play to buy one of those cars. It was a Frostbite blue one. So yeah, I have a real soft spot in my heart for the 1320. If you're going to the drag strip and just want something that's going to be a lot of fun, it's going to be competitive, but is not going to put you in a position on the street where it's not really any fun unless you're really cranking the thing into the stratosphere. The 1320 is a lot of fun, and it's a great car, but and it'll keep you from doing a lot of mods. If you get the 1320, leave it alone. If you're taking it to the drag strip, it comes with the Nexans. They're pretty good. We were running 12 O's on the street 2 Octobers ago. So, you know, there's that. I again, love the car. The Hellcat, Damn. See, the problem with the Hellcat is that it's just a credit card away from being a freaking mid 9-second car. The problem with that is that a Hellcat running mid 9s is not what you expect a mid 9-second car to be. It is spooky how fast a mid 9-second car is by today's standards and how much power the car has at that point. I would say that it's probably, if you're toying with the idea between the two, man, the 1320 is a great car. Again, if I were facing that conundrum right now, knowing what I know now, and knowing, that I may just only be drag racing with a Draggy on the street if that track goes away, then I'm going the 1320 because I can use every horsepower that I paid for in a 1320 in one way, shape, or form. You can't really say the same about a Hellcat, unfortunately, because the Hellcat just makes so much power that you've got to have tires like these back here just to get them to hook on any level on the street from a dig. Now, you can get them to hook from a roll, sure, that's not a problem. And drag radials are what most guys use as daily tires anyway, and they work great if you're just playing around on the street. But again, there are traction limitations that come with those cars. Summer's asking, were they able to do 14s on polyglass tires? Absolutely they could. 100% could. Him saying, and speaking of better traction, get you some Michelin Cross Climate 2s for the family Grand Caravan. Now it spins too easy, especially in the wet. Nice. Oh, Alex is asking, hey, how used is that 15? Yeah, that's the thing. Ruth's saying they're both really good cars, but there's always that thought in the back of your head that you should have got it if you don't. Probably talking about the Hellcat. Yeah. So that's if you can get the Hellcat and resist the urge to throw the kitchen sink at it and build a mid 9-second car. The upside to the Hellcat is that the Hellcat will always be a Hellcat. The only downside to it, though, with it being a 15, minor electrical issues can start to bug you. I've already gone through, and I had a list somewhere. I don't have it over here anymore. I had a list of all the goofy little minor electrical things that had gone wrong. Now, by this point, that car has probably had them all happen. It's front wheel speed sensors, front hubs, just the sensor inside of there for how, I don't know how that failed, but it did. Rear speed sensor failing, the fuel pump control module failing, sketchy performance from the body control module through the Uconnect, just goofy little stuff like that. That's the things that'll drive you nuts with those things. So again, the newer cars, a lot less issues than the older cars, especially one that's, you got to remember that thing's coming up on 8 years old, so there's that to consider. But the Hellcat in general is an extremely durable car, but man, it's not without its flaws, that's for sure. Jeremy's saying, really like the 1320, but a Hellcat, yeah, I know, wish I could win the lottery. Yeah, you and me both. Rift's saying he's got his 8,000 miles for 48. Yeah, prices have gone up through the roof, though, and that is the truth. KDC's asking, how many tenths do you think you cut off my 4.30 to 60 going from a 306 to a 373? I'm hoping to get under 4.0. It's going to be traction. I think you're running a 5.7 with your car, so I mean, you could probably get down into that range, but again, it's all about tires and traction really more than anything else. I don't know if a Well, switch to 373 might get you in the 4.0 range. 4.0, 4.1, probably somewhere in that range, I would guess. Riff's asking, where did you find that front crash bar you put on your cat? That came from, it's an independent guy out of California that put that together. If you look up that video that I did, there's a link to his website on both of those videos. They're easy to find. I think they're in the how-to section, and it's the front of the car with the whole front bumper cover missing. If you duck into that one, open it up, go into the description, and I've got his name and everything else listed in there. I just can't remember it off the top of my head right now. Jeremy's saying he's got a 5.7 RT 6-speed. Thinking about building it? You should. It's a fun car. Riff's talking about his 6.1. Yeah, I don't know what it would be worth now. And built cars, I don't know. You got to find the right ass for that seat, man. It's kind of a weird thing. No Average RT is saying the 392 gear works great with the NAG 1. Yeah, if you're rocking a NAG 1, 370 gear is actually a really fun gear for that truck. Probably wouldn't go 392. It'd be kind of aggressive on the highway. Summer Knight's talking about 392 engine, usable power. Yeah, for sure. Riff's saying, yeah, it's a lot more usable power in the street, but there's always going to be that thought that you could have got a cat. You know, yeah, the thing is that I would agree with that to a certain point. I mean, there's always going to be the thought, man, I could have had something more powerful for the same price. And it's always going to be a Hellcat. I just sometimes speaking the truth is kind of hard to do, but nobody knows what a 1320 is unless you're into Dodge stuff. But everybody knows what a Hellcat is. So if you know the history of the Hellcat, if you know the owner of the Hellcat, more to the point, you know it's been taken. It can be driven super hard. I mean, look at Revlon. She's run how many quarter-mile passes? But she's been meticulously maintained. So, what that was. But she's been meticulously maintained. So, she's fresh as a daisy. Where I've seen cars that have just been beat up, oil's never been changed. And I mean, they're just ragged out. And so there's a difference between driven hard and ragged out. And, you know, that's just kind of the way that it works out with those things. Oh, Riff's talking about his car actually spooks him on the street. Yeah, I mean, yeah, and it'll still spin at 60 if you floor it. That was our experience with the Bravo package cars. I mean, going down the highway, and these are cars that, I mean, it's kind of in that power range. 815 on a Mustang dyno, so right just shy of 900 on a dyno jet. I mean, how the crow flies, basically. Right in that range, and I mean, you get the thing on the highway, and it just, yeah, 65, 75 miles an hour, even on drag radials, lights the tires up, and it sounds romantic. Ooh, Neo, super fast, lots of power. The problem with super fast and lots of power is that super fast and lots of power happens when you don't want it. You know, when you want to just drive the thing like an automobile, you know, you like, damn, put it in 500 horse mode, only make 5 pounds of boost, you know. And there's times when I do that with the Hellcat, and that's something that it's a party trick that the Hellcat has. Now, granted, I mean, you're kind of stuck with street mode transmission settings, but man, I'm telling you, if you've got a Hellcat and you just don't feel like it, you know, being the star of the show, and you just want to drive something that's fast and fun, put it in 500 horse mode. It's going to drive like a Scat Pack. In fact, it will run the same quarter mile time as that 1320 will, with the black key or with the car set in 500 horse mode. So there's always that option. Remember that the Hellcat really is many cars in one. And what it really is it does the one or the other really well. You can scat pack that thing or you can Hellcat it. So, I mean, if you want a 500 horsepower car, get a Hellcat and just use the black key. I used to do that with Revlon all the time. Used to drive it in 500 horse mode or just had the black key with me. Riv, thank you very much. Man, listen, I mean, don't feel obligated, guys. I mean, I really do appreciate that, Riv. Thank you so much. I really do appreciate that, buddy. A ton. Very, very much, bud. And I'm kind of right there with you. Say, I feel like a lot of these last edition Mopars that are coming out with him, you're just money grabs, just a bunch of fancy names with a few color options for a lot of money. Listen, they're sticker options. That's all they are. It's just sticker kits. And the only one that's not is the Super B. The Super B is a legit hot rod. For the NA guys out there, it's basically a 1320 392 powered Charger. I mean, it's a legit neat car. The rest of them, man, I'm sorry, guys. I'm just not on board. Not from a collectible. I'm not that guy. Okay. So the message there was completely lost on me. I get what they're doing. I get what they're going for, but it just sucks. Riff saying, oh, and that's what the ET streets. You know, it's funny when I would do so I would have to do the data logs with the cars where you do the street validations with them. You never want to turn in a modified high performance car to its owner without putting it through its paces. And you've got to basically beat the crap out of the thing to make sure that when you hand it over you're not beating the crap out of it. It's a bad way to put it. From the outside looking in, you might think that, but that's really not the case. It's basically making sure that everything is working the way that it should. The last thing you want to do is hand over a 1,000 horsepower car to somebody that's not going to perform like a 1,000 horsepower car, or that has any issues, hiccups, glitches, or would otherwise be something that is not a positive experience. And so you get out there and you hammer these things. Well, the problem that you have when you start getting into these kind of power levels is that you have to have ET Street Rs on the backs of the cars, or else they're dangerous to drive. I mean, they're literally dangerous vehicles to get out on the road and actually apply or try to apply that amount of power to the road. It's funny at those power levels, you're running drag racing tires just to get them to hook. And that's crazy because the amount of power that you're making in any other car would be significantly faster. But at the weight that these cars are and the fact that they're independent rear suspension cars and they do articulate, when you hammer them on the highway, you lose contact patch. And so it would get kind of hairy in some of these cars where you want the throttle. I mean, wouldn't do it at 65 because it's gonna flash it right over at peak horsepower, but put it in manual mode and just start doing power sweeps with it. And you'll end up doing some obnoxious numbers on the highway, but it's in controlled, road closure conditions. So you're safe with that. But there's also the fact of the matter that you're in somebody else's car and you're doing things with them to make sure that they are safe, but those things that you are doing is unsafe. Not unsafe, but it's it is sketch level midnight for some of the big horsepower cars. Let's see, guys. I think I'm just about catching up with you. And again, thank you, Rift. I do appreciate it, buddy. Jeremy's talking about, I see like everybody, all the cats are in Florida and Texas, bro. I'm telling you. Oh, dude, listen. I mean, I know where you're going with. I mean, I know where you're coming from because I've been there too. I mean, I do have a Hellcat. I've got a Hellcat because I used to work with a lot of 392s and Hellcats, and I was convinced by a few of the cars that came through the shop that the Hellcat is probably the most durable car from a performance automobile point of view. Is ZL1's close. CTSV is also really close. GT500, the older ones, kind of hard to say because they're 6-speed cars, but they're up there too, with being some of the most durable and rugged vehicles that have ever been made. And that was my experience with the Hellcats, and that's why I made the move to it. So, but guys, with that, we are running over 2 hours. I got to get up early in the morning, so I got to check out. But I want to thank each and every one of you guys for hanging out with me. Guys, really, I mean it. Would not do this without you. Love each and every one of you guys. Remember to get out there and do something cool for somebody, because chances are they need it a lot more than you know. And with that, that's a wrap. We'll catch y'all on the next one. I'm going to be putting up some videos while I'm collecting parts and as I'm putting Stormy back together. So be on the lookout for that. Really more of a how-to, kind of bringing you guys into the shop with me a little bit. I'll be putting the support structure thing back on the truck probably tomorrow. So I'll post up something up there. It'll be kind of fun just to, see me crawling around the inner fender well of the truck. So anyway, guys, with that, that's a wrap. Y'all have a great one. Thanks again. Adios.